So I'd like to introduce to you our first speaker, and I cannot tell you how thrilled I am to welcome Soraya Deen this morning. She's the founder of the Muslim Woman Speakers Movement. She's the co-founder of Peace Moms, a spiritual activist, a lawyer, a nonviolent parent educator, and author of the book Peace Matters, Raising Peace-Conscious Children. For more than a decade, Soraya has blended her legal expertise with her diverse background to inspire women to be leaders, navigate conflict, and create connection. So please give a huge welcome to Soraya Deen. So put it in there for you.
Okay. Wow. Can you hear me now? Verizon didn't sponsor me to be here. I feel like a mosquito in a nudist colony. In the midst of all of you, where do I begin? So first, thank you, Erin, for the kind introduction. And Oregon, I say, is a second home for me. In March of 2017, I told my 13-year-old daughter I had some work to do. I got into a flight and flew to Oregon. I rented a car and I drove 1,000 miles and I met 1,000 people. When I went back to California, some newspapers in Oregon said, "Meet Soraya, a true American Muslim." And in July of this year, my friend Erica, who's right here, she hosts women from 8 years to 80 years to tell their stories. So, and she says, women, we must row. We must not whisper. We must row. So it's always a joy, a privilege, and an honor to be in the midst of women. Growing up, I learned a story. When Jesus Christ was born, instead of the 3 wise men, if there were 3 wise women, they would have taken better gifts, asked for directions, and cleaned the stables. And believe me, today, the world is hungry for our voice, for our work and our vision. This is a time, the right moment for us to collaborate and support one another. The Dalai Lama said, if change has to happen, it has to happen from the women of the West. Yes. And if non-violence is to happen, Gandhi said, it has to be birthed by the women. So we have a big calling. And I am so honored and privileged again to stand in the midst of you. Because it is because of women like you that my voice is heard today. Because you believe from the goodness of your heart that my story matters. As an immigrant, as a Muslim, that's an honor for us today. So again, thank you so much for having me. And people like us who work in the field of justice, compassion, and collaboration, they say always give when your cup overflows or when your cup is full. It doesn't happen that way. We women who are committed to justice and compassionate work, we are always giving when our cup is half full, when our cup is empty. So therefore, I want to share a story that my father taught me. It's kind of Eastern wisdom. I was born in Sri Lanka. How many of you know where Sri Lanka is? Oh, great, yeah. I sometimes have to remind it's not going to India and making a right. So my father told me this story of the 2 chicken farmers. Farmer number 1 woke up every morning, went to the chicken coop, and he picked up the chicken eggs. Brown, golden brown eggs. He would bring it home. He would share some, he would sell some, he would eat some. Now farmer number 2, he also went to the chicken coop. But what he picked was something different. He picked the chicken poop. He brought it home and he started collecting it. his house began to smell. He began to smell. So my father would always ask me, this is the first question he'd teach us. This is the first question you need to ask every day. Are you carrying the chicken poop or the chicken eggs? So this is the critical question that we peacemakers, we justice promoters, we have to ask. Because if we are not peaceful, we can't talk about peace. We can't bring about peace. Because there's something more than this, what we see and hear. There's an energy field between us. So we have to show up and we have to be that love. That is critical. And that is something I embrace on a daily basis. Like simply put, I wake up every morning and I smile for 15 seconds. That grounds you. That enables you to see the beauty of everything. So simple spiritual masteries. Now at the Northwestern Counseling Center, you think when person who needs help walks in, you help the person, you have helped just one person? No. You have helped a community. You have helped a son or a daughter, a husband or a wife, a mother or a father. You have served the community, your state and the country and the world. And I realized that because I'm coming to you, yesterday I was in Mexico. We were in an immersion program, listening, learning, and living with the immigrants. And at the border, these people are taken and just dumped over the border with just a little bag. So they come across to Mexico, and there was a shelter that has operated for 31 years. Sister Barbara, like yours, 31 years. And this family, they never take a day off. There are 400 beds in their house. Now it's a big place for immigrants to stay. And right next to that was the Kino Foundation. How many of you have heard of the Kino Foundation? Some Jesuit priests, they provide 2 meals. So what I realized was when they intercede and feed this migrant, when they intercede and give housing and clothing, they're serving the community. Because that particular youth, left unloved and cared for, could be a liability to the community. But what they do is they take the person and they help him transition smoothly. And it's a huge catastrophe out there. I'm not talking about continuing immigration without monitoring it. That perpetuates the problem. But what we need comprehensive immigration policies. Because the truth be told, the United States of America, the third partner of trade is Mexico. Canada, Mexico, US, they're partners in trade. At the Tucson border, the Mexicans bring in $1 billion worth of business every year. And I think there's something that needs to radically change in the way we talk about them. And I kind of feel I did my piece because when my daughter was in kindergarten, I enrolled her in a Spanish immersion. And she's very fluent in Spanish. And today, because of that, she's bilingual. So how can we really talk about the people who are not at the table? That's something that we people who are into this field of justice, we do it well, and I think we need to do it more. So I talked about some spiritual mastery, and I want to refer to 2 things that I practice, which you might already be. In everything we see here, the first thing we need to do when you're facing a challenging situation is not to assign bad intent to the person, to the other. The minute we assign bad intent, we take a different path of fault finding, blame and shame. And that does not affect that person, but it affects us. So how can we peacemakers and justice doers stay in the realm of not judging, blaming and shaming is critical. And then a second thing I always try to incorporate and encourage peacemakers is that we communicate without violence. non-violent communication? How can we make observations? Jiddu Krishnamurti said, the highest form of intelligence is to observe without judging. That's a tough thing to do. That's a tough thing to do. Communicate with compassion. And I want to thank Amy particularly. When she led that prayer, she said, Jesus and Allah. That touched my heart because that was a simple word. But it had so much meaning for me. Because there she recognized me who is not the stranger, but a kind of a stranger, not the other, but a kind of the other. Thank you for that. And then forgiving is something that we have to practice on a daily basis. Because hate and anger are not good companions. They can make us sick. So forgiving is another practice that has to be practiced, that has to be remembered and acted upon on a daily basis. Marianne Williamson says, forgive out of self-interest, because that serves us better. And why am I sharing all this? Because these are some of the emotions and the challenges I deal with as an activist. On the one hand, as I represent my community, we never cease to hear how bad the American Muslim is, how much ill we mean for America, and how much we want to destabilize this country. So I stand up for that. And then within the community, we have a lot of issues too. There's absolute patriarchy that I address on a daily basis. Because patriarchy is debilitating all women, not just in my community, but I address that in my community. And Dr. King said, today what we need to do is that what he said, we have to fly. And if we can't fly, we have to run. And if we can't run, we have to walk. But he said, even if you don't do anything, just keep moving. So in our social justice movements, we have to keep moving. We have to build on it. And a powerful way to do that I am realizing very late in my life as an activist is to build power. Build power with like-minded women. Yes. And how can we do that? We sit with each other. We ask them, what is your vision? What is your vocation? What are your values? And we have to build that foundation strong and powerful so that when one of us falls, there will be enough of others to pick us up. And that is a special calling for us women today. And the path will be windy and it is challenging. But let us remember the stories of Mother Teresa. From Albania, she went to India to care for the unloved and uncared for. What did they do to her? They stoned her, they ridiculed her, they chased her. But she was committed. And the story of Malala, a young 13-year-old girl, just because she said girls needed education, she was shot. And today she says, let's educate all women. And I want to join her, I don't know her, but I want to tell her, I was a lawyer when I was subjected to patriarchy. Education and dismantling patriarchy, I believe, should go hand in hand. So we have to teach that together to our to the girls and women today. And what about the story of Rosa Parks? I mean, if she stood there waiting for consensus, she'll be still waiting for consensus. She was bold. She decided, I'm going to do that which is right. And that is why people of faith like us, there's a greater calling on us. When I was growing up, I was always guided by the story of Christ, the Good Samaritan. The question to ask is not what will happen to me, but what will happen to the other person if I don't help that person. And I don't intend to preach to you because I know you're here because you asked that question. But what we can ask is, can we ask that question more? Can we do more? Can we give more? Can we be more? That's something I think we have as humans, infinite potential. We can do that. And let us also remember, my mentor Les Brown says, remember 3 things. It's possible. If those 3 women I mentioned did what they did, it's possible for us to do anything. It's necessary. And as Erin said, the world is broken. I mean, I take a step back as an immigrant and I'm aghast at the conversations and what's happening in our country today. It's necessary. Because for me personally, home is not where my grandparents were buried. It's here. And how can I interrupt that conversation about the Muslims? That we don't love America, that we want to hurt America. That's a very critical question. That's a very critical thing that we in the Muslim communities are taking very seriously, because it's not getting any better for us. And that is why when I'm with people who care, especially, I don't know, there's something about Oregon. You do more. You do more. And this year alone, I've been here 4 times. There's something, so please keep it up. Because let you be a shining light to the whole of the United States. So it's possible, it's necessary, and it's you. Nobody's going to sing your song. Nobody's going to write your book. Nobody's going to create that movement that you're supposed to create. And as Sister Barbara did, nobody would have done this work, but because she did it, that we are here. So it's possible. And I think we also live in a very privileged universe. Today, with a computer from our garage, we can transform the world. We can do that. And especially that is the message I give the youth. And just ask a question. I mean, how many Rotarians here? Just the four simple truths, right? Is this the truth? Will it benefit everybody? Will it promote goodwill? Will it build better friendships? And if you can answer yes, just I say do it. And then, let us not forget, the road is windy. It's never going to be easy. And believe me, I also think there's more conflict in our homes than in the world. So that is why when our leaders say, religion has become a very powerful tool for our leaders. But Napoleon said it is a powerful tool. It keeps us squabbling, but it is very powerful and useful to our leaders. So no matter what happens around us, I think we have the capacity to make that choice. The choice that is right, that is deep and that's good. Because finally, I say, the difference between good and God is the letter O. If we can recognize that fact and continue to do what is good, God is in us. And there's this story of Dr. King, where once he was at a meeting. Somebody walked up to him and asked, "Are you king?" So Dr. King looks up at this person and says, "Yes, I am." And this person takes a mouthful of spit and spits it at Dr. King. Dr. King reaches for his handkerchief, he wipes the spit and he says, "Here, this belongs to you." Yes. So today that is where we are going to be. The women who are committed to justice and peacemaking. And we know America gave us George Washington Carver, who founded 300 uses for the peanut. So an inanimate thing like a peanut, if it can be that useful, how much more useful can you and I be? Is something we want to celebrate every day. Yes. So in this journey, as we move along, for the truth that I hold is love. One person with love trying to address an issue can be way more effective than 1,000 who are fighting to solve something. Love is critical. Because when I show up with love, the other person has to not hate me, but stop hating me. So that's very critical for us to love each other. And I think in the process of this journey, we have to be very mindful that we turn to each other and not on each other. Because there can be many reasons, many situations that can really flip a good friendship, a community. So for us to stay grounded in that truth. And lastly, I want to leave you with this message. We must all look at the world not as it is. It will not give us hope. We must look at the world as it could be, so that it will become what it should be. Thank you.